So here's a game that's been waiting on my shelves for a while. Rillem, a solo journaling game inspired by atmospheric adventure video games like Myst, or maybe more specifically Riven, the sequel to Myst. I don't claim to be super familiar with that kind of game, but my partner's a big fan, and I hope I get the idea. And I'm also very interested in how the mechanics of a game evoke the feeling of the fiction it's trying to convey. So that's what I want to focus on in this review. How exactly does Rillem try to give you an experience similar to a 90s video game, using only the zine, a deck of cards, and a few bits and pieces? Well, let's find out. This is a lovely little zine. It's only 20 pages long, but nicely laid out with some very stylish graphical assets that help set the tone and show visually how the game is meant to work. It's a nicely accessible format that does a lot with a little. I really enjoyed the colour scheme and these sketchy, glyph-like images dotted about that actually might give you a bit of inspiration for your own sketches. There is one downside though, which is that when playing, you're mostly going to be looking at the prompt pages, which aren't as visually appealing and have a much more blocky layout that might be slightly difficult to read. I'm going to try not to show too much of the prompt pages, but very briefly, this is what I mean. Rillem is a quiet and lonely place, a world at the end of its life, with the sun forever setting. For whatever reason, you've been transported here to these misty, interconnected islands, with only a few days remaining before they collapse into the void. This world was inhabited once by the people called the Bunny, and yes, they were rabbit folk. The remains of their machines and architecture scatter these islands, connecting them into a great warren. You may never fully understand the strange and surreal things they were left behind, but they have the ghost of culture around them. You might find spinning machines with cogs and gears, and bunny figures that move like a rotoscope. Or you might find bell towers or monolithic stone carvings that have more of a ritualistic feel. You'll generate your own version of Rillem, and it'll be different each time you play, but a couple of things remain the same. There are multiple connected islands, and at the centre is a tower, the tower where you woke up. Rillem uses the Carter system, which is such a simple and elegant system for exploration that I don't really know why I only tend to see it used in little journaling games like this. The idea is that at the beginning of the game, you lay out a grid of cards face down to represent a map. You use a mini or a token to represent your character, and as you move across the map, you turn over the card and check a table to reveal what you found. I really enjoy this style of exploration because it feels very much like actually discovering something that was there waiting for you to find it, rather than generating it as you get there. And it turns out this is a perfect system for replicating that feeling of 90s adventure video games, where you'd move from one screen to another and discover what's there. So with that general idea out of the way, how does Rillem specifically work? Well, first you decide on what your goal is going to be from three options that slightly alter the story you'll experience. The first option is that someone you know has been imprisoned in the tower in Rillem, and you'll need to unlock it before the world collapses into the void. So you do a bit of setting up your deck before you end up with 32 cards to build the world with. You start with the tower, the Ace of Spades, and build an island of 11 cards around it like this. This is your main island in the archipelago. Moving between the areas or screens costs a bit of time, represented by some tokens. You start with 10, and if you drop to 0, a day has passed, and you wake up back at the tower. The world crumbles at the end of 3 days. The book encourages you to sketch and journal your journey. In fact, it says you shouldn't move on until you've both written and drawn something based on the prompt. But it also says you can play how you like, so you could focus on the drawing and make it a map building game, or focus on the narrative with just a little bit of sketching here and there. When I played, I didn't really feel like writing very much, and decided to focus mostly on the map, and that worked perfectly fine. So, as you move to a new screen, you reveal the card and check its prompts in the table. Each suit has a different theme. Diamonds are obstacles like a lock or a puzzle of some kind. And they can be bypassed by finding a spade of equal or higher value. So you end up pairing off diamonds and spades into somehow connected locks and keys, or puzzles and clues, or mechanisms and levers, or whatever obstacle you decide. Hearts are strange things to discover that might give you a small boon, and clubs are omens of the end that Rillem is soon to meet, like unsettling celestial phenomena or a section of ocean draining into the void. Also on the main island are 3 warrens represented by aces. When you discover one, you'll find some contraption that links to a new island, which you build from 7 new cards. Any face card you find relates to the story that you chose at the beginning. The goal is generally the same though. You need to bypass or unlock 3 obstacles across the islands, and that will give you access to the tower. And something to note here is that you'll get a vague prompt, but how those obstacles work and how they connect to the solution and how they grant you access to the tower is completely up to your imagination. You shouldn't expect any mechanical puzzles going into this. Rillem is very much more about the atmosphere of wandering the islands. It's not a puzzle game. As a quick example, in my playthrough, the first thing I discovered was a spade card, another tower with a viewing platform that let me see across the misty isles. I decided this platform pointed me in a general direction, but I'd need to retrospectively figure out how this tower specifically had helped. And after following the path east through a pipe system to the next island, I discovered a device with various levers. I decided to remember that there was a pattern of lights on the viewing platform that matched the number of levers. Setting them to the right pattern moved a mirror that directed a beam of light into the distance, and I could figure out what exactly that did later. So I've been thinking recently about the cognitive load that journaling games place on the player, since Steve from Errant Adventures mentioned it as a barrier to entry on an Ironsworn Guys episode. And I think Rillem is an example of a deceptively demanding game. That's not to say that Rillem asks more of you than other games, far from it really, just that it's more of an undertaking than it might seem from the 20-page zine. There's a fairly in-depth setup, a lot of table space required for all the islands, and then the cognitive load of having to figure out how the obstacles work and how they all connect, on top of journaling and drawing every move. It all adds up. And how long a playthrough might take will vary massively depending on how you're recording your story and how the cards got shuffled in the beginning. Call it ludonarrative harmony or whatever you like. I'm a big appreciator of when mechanics in RPGs feel like the fiction they're trying to convey, and that goes beyond emotion and story and can even be a more concrete, tactile thing. And Rillem is a great example of that. Moving a token around a grid of cards really evokes a similar feeling to pressing the arrow buttons to move to another screen in an adventure video game. Turning the card over and reading the prompt feels like discovering something that was hidden and mysterious. And laying out your cards and connecting them by bits of string feels like discovering a route to a new island. And those aspects of Myst and Riven-like games is what Rillem is trying to capture. That quiet, atmospheric sense of finding your way around abandoned islands, screen by screen. I think if you were trying to recreate the feeling of those 90s games in a traditional RPG, it'd be tempting to design a series of puzzles that you need to solve to progress, and in that way you'd end up with essentially just another dungeon crawl, and not really evoking that Myst-like feeling. But this isn't about the puzzles, it's about the experience, the quiet exploration, the surreal atmosphere, discovering and interacting with the remnants of a strange and dormant world. And in capturing that experience, Rillem nails it. So, Happy New Year, everyone. I've still got a huge pile of games I want to review this year, and others I want to play casually as well. The list never seems to go down. Someone who's not familiar with the tabletop scene was asking me over the holiday when I'll run out of games. I really don't think there's a danger of that. Here's my pile of things I want to get to soonish. I've no idea what the next one will be. I'll just see where my mood takes me, I guess. So please do subscribe if you haven't already to discover a new little indie game every couple of weeks or so. And a huge thank you, as always, to this month's Ko-fi supporters. If you feel able and eager to support what I do here in showcasing all these games that deserve a little bit more attention, please head over to